They said she was done. After the accident, everyone whispered behind her back. Naomi Chen, the genius architect who once reshaped city skylines, was now just the woman in the wheelchair. Her husband, Grant Taylor, smiled for the cameras, played the part of the loving spouse, and told the world how brave she was. But behind closed doors, he was slipping away into someone else's arms. At their company's annual gala, a night meant to celebrate their legacy, Grant did the unthinkable. In front of nearly 200 guests, he introduced his much younger, very pregnant mistress as the future of the company and of his life. The crowd gasped. Cameras flashed. Naomi, tucked in a corner like an afterthought, was expected to stay silent. But she didn't. Because what no one knew, what Grant never saw coming, was that Naomi had been watching. Planning. Gathering evidence. And tonight? She had something to say. And when she finally rolled to the stage, took the mic, and stood up, everything changed. In the months after her accident, Naomi tried to believe that nothing had changed. She told herself the distance was just stress. That her husband Grant's long nights at the office were necessary. That missing dinner, again, was just business. But somewhere deep inside, a quiet suspicion began to grow, a gnawing sense that the man who once held her hand through all-night design sessions was slowly backing away. At first, it was small things. Her opinions in team meetings were no longer requested. Then, those meetings moved to Zoom. Then, she stopped being invited altogether. Their firm, Taylor + Chen Urban Group, had once been their shared dream. Now, it felt like Naomi was watching from behind glass as Grant took over everything. He became the face, the voice, the vision. Her sketches still hung in the conference room, but no one asked for new ones. And when she did offer ideas, Grant would smile gently, pat her hand, and say, "You should focus on your health." And she tried. Physical therapy became her daily grind. She pushed through the pain, through the exhaustion. But even as her body fought to heal, her mind began to spiral. Why was her medication making her so foggy? Why did she feel more dependent by the week, not less? Why was Grant always the one refilling her prescriptions, insisting she just trust him? Worse, she noticed the way he avoided eye contact. The calls he took behind closed doors. The subtle shift in his voice when he said her name. The kind of tone you'd use with a patient, not a partner. And then there were the lies. One night, he told her he had a late board meeting. But Naomi, unable to sleep, had wandered into his home office and seen his laptop left open, an Uber receipt to a downtown wine bar. At 10:17 p.m. The same time he claimed to be in the boardroom. It wasn't just business he was hiding. And the woman. She began to notice the faint scent of perfume on his jacket. The sudden appearance of women's items, receipts, a second toothbrush hidden in a travel case, a Tiffany's bag she never received. Still, Naomi told no one. Not yet. Because she wasn't ready to accuse him. She was ready to catch him. What Grant didn't know, what he couldn't possibly imagine, was that Naomi had stopped taking the pills. Quietly. Strategically. She began keeping a journal. Tracking details. Recording times, dates, patterns. Behind the facade of the obedient wife in the wheelchair, Naomi was reawakening. And by the time she found the first offshore account, it was already too late for him. Because Naomi wasn't just rebuilding her strength. She was building a case. And the next time someone underestimated her, they'd regret it. It started with a locked drawer. Grant had always been meticulous with his office, clean desk, labeled folders, nothing out of place. But when Naomi wheeled in one quiet afternoon, pretending to be looking for a receipt, she noticed something odd. The bottom drawer of his desk didn't budge. It had never been locked before. That was the moment everything shifted. She didn't confront him. She didn't ask. Instead, the next day, she planted a tiny wireless camera, no bigger than a paperclip, into the bookshelf that overlooked his desk. It fed straight to her tablet, and every night, while he thought she was sedated in bed, she watched. For the first few days, there was nothing. Boring calls. Financial spreadsheets. Until Tuesday night. Naomi watched as Grant locked the door, turned down the lights, and opened that drawer using a small brass key. From it, he pulled out a thin black leather book, not a planner, not a journal. A ledger. She watched him flip through pages, making notes, calculating. His face was different. Not casual, not careless. This was a man deeply focused. Intentional. The next morning, when Grant left early for a site visit, Naomi found the drawer key where she guessed it would be, in the inner lining of his old briefcase. Hands trembling, she opened the ledger. And what she found made her skin crawl. There were transfers, hundreds of thousands of dollars, sent to numbered accounts in the Caymans, Luxembourg, Zurich. Transactions that didn't appear on any of their joint financial records. In the margins, he'd scribbled coded notes. O. Deposit. O. Prenatal care. V. Gift. PH. Closing date. V. As in Vanessa. PH. As in penthouse. Naomi took photos of every page. Every number. Every scribbled lie. This wasn't just betrayal. This was deliberate financial erasure. She began digging. With the help of her sister Lena, a cybersecurity consultant, Naomi gained access to Grant's cloud backups. Emails to and from Vanessa stretched back almost a year before her accident. Pictures from hotels in Chicago. Calendar invites marked executive briefings that matched luxury dinner reservations. And then came the worst part. Clara, the private investigator Naomi had hired through her lawyer, found something buried in the inspection records of the project where Naomi had fallen, the one that left her in a wheelchair. The temporary platform she was standing on had been flagged for reinforcement. A safety repair was scheduled. The signature confirming the work was done? Grant Taylor. Except the repair never happened. He had signed off and sent her up there. Naomi stared at the documents, her mind racing. Her fall wasn't just an accident. It might have been something else entirely. Negligence? Maybe. Intentional? She didn't want to think about it. But she had to. Because now, she wasn't just a wife wronged. She was a target. And she was done being quiet. For months, Naomi had lived under fog, emotional, physical, chemical. But now? Now she knew the fog had a name, Grant. He had carefully crafted her confusion. Her fatigue. The pills he so dutifully brought every morning and night? They weren't helping her, they were sedating her. Keeping her docile, quiet, easy to manage. The day Naomi flushed her meds down the sink for the first time, her hands trembled, not from weakness, but from rage. A quiet, pulsing fury that had lived under her skin for too long. But rage alone wouldn't save her. So she made a plan. She changed neurologists. Hired her own physical therapist, someone Grant didn't know. She moved her rehab offsite, telling Grant it was art therapy, something safe and passive. In truth, Naomi was rebuilding herself hour by painful hour. Every session was brutal. Every step a war. But Naomi fought through the dizziness, the muscle cramps, the whispers in her head that said she'd never stand again. Because now she knew those whispers didn't belong to her. They belonged to him. 2 weeks after detoxing from the medications, something shifted. Her mind felt clearer. Her balance steadier. She could remember conversations, dates, details. Her cane no longer felt like a symbol of defeat, it felt like a sword. And with every small victory, standing 5 seconds longer, walking 6 steps without help, she felt the woman she used to be claw her way back to the surface. The one who had designed award-winning buildings. Who had launched a firm from a dorm room. Who had held a champagne glass in one hand and a blueprint in the other. That woman wasn't gone. She was just recovering. Naomi began to track everything: Grant's travel lies, his credit card purchases, the gaps in his stories. Her sister Lena helped install digital locks on her personal files, just in case. Her therapist Casey coached her through the emotional landmines: how to hold her poker face, how to stay calm when all she wanted to do was scream. At night, Naomi replayed everything Grant had ever said to her: the subtle digs, the faux concern, the lines meant to keep her small. "Sweetheart, your recovery's been hard on both of us. You don't have to worry about business stuff anymore. You should focus on resting. I've got this." She had believed him once. Now, she knew better. By the time the gala invitations went out, Naomi could stand for nearly 10 minutes unassisted. She still needed her wheelchair for longer events, but she no longer felt trapped by it. It was a choice. A tool. Not a prison. The mirror reflected a woman he thought he had erased. But Naomi had never vanished. She had gone underground. And now, she was ready to rise. The night of the gala shimmered with elegance. Their Manhattan penthouse was dressed to impress: crystal chandeliers, live jazz, 5-star catering. To the guests sipping champagne and admiring skyline views, it looked like the celebration of the year. But for Naomi Chen, it was the battleground she had been preparing for. She sat poised in her wheelchair near the back of the room, draped in a midnight blue gown Grant had once called timeless. Her expression was calm, controlled, and absolutely unreadable. At 8:45 p.m., the music lowered. Grant stepped up to the stage with a signature smile, designer tuxedo crisp, ego even sharper. "Thank you all for joining us tonight," he began, his voice smooth as scotch. "It's an honor to share our home and our future with you." Then he turned to her. "Naomi and I have been through so much. Her strength has inspired me in ways I can't describe." Liar. He motioned toward the entrance as the crowd turned. Vanessa entered in a shimmering gold gown, her pregnant belly impossible to ignore. Grant smiled wide. "Tonight, I'm proud to introduce not only our new creative director, but the mother of my child." A few guests clapped. Most froze. Naomi didn't. She slowly wheeled forward. The spotlight shifted. The room fell silent. "I'd like to say a few words," she said, voice steady. Grant tried to interrupt. "Naomi, maybe now's not the..." But she kept speaking. "For months, I've been called brave, strong, resilient. But those words are easy to throw at someone when you want them quiet." The crowd leaned in. "Tonight, you deserve the truth. About Grant. About what really happened." She pulled a remote from her clutch. The screen behind Grant flickered, then changed. Medical records. Her prescriptions. Dosages. The off-label drugs that left her foggy and weak. "Grant managed my medications personally," she said. "Drugs not meant for my condition, prescribed in dangerously high doses, designed to keep me confused and compliant." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Next came the emails. Messages between Grant and select doctors, urging them to emphasize Naomi's declining cognition and to discourage her from returning to work. "This is medical gaslighting," Naomi continued. He wanted power. Control. And when that wasn't enough, he started stealing. Financial documents appeared on screen, wire transfers to offshore accounts. A deed to a penthouse. Charges to the foundation credit card for prenatal care, jewelry, luxury travel. "He embezzled over $7.5 million from our company and foundation," she said. "Funds meant for accessibility projects, used to fund a secret life with his mistress. Then came the final blow. Security footage. Grainy, time-stamped. Grant on the construction site. Speaking with a foreman. Handing over an envelope. Hours before the accident. Gasps. And then, Mr. Taylor. The voice came from the back of the room. FBI agents stepped forward, flanking Grant as panic finally broke through his polished mask. "You're under investigation for wire fraud, embezzlement, and medical endangerment," said the lead agent. Grant turned to Naomi, stunned. "You planned this?" She looked him dead in the eye. "No. I built it." And as the agents led him away, Naomi reached into her bag, pulled out her cane, and stood. By the time the gala lights dimmed and the last shocked guests stumbled into the Manhattan night, Grant Taylor's empire had crumbled. The next morning, headlines hit every major outlet. Real estate mogul arrested for fraud and medical abuse, wife exposes everything at company gala. Naomi didn't speak to reporters that day. She didn't need to. She let the truth speak for her. The FBI's case unfolded quickly. With hard evidence of financial misconduct, falsified medical records, and tampered inspection documents, Grant was indicted on multiple federal charges. Naomi's legal team, now bolstered by pro bono support from organizations for disabled rights, filed a civil suit for medical manipulation and financial abuse. Vanessa, shaken and ashamed, fully cooperated with investigators. She had no idea how deep the lies went. And Naomi? Naomi rose. She dissolved the firm once known as Taylor + Chen and launched a new practice, Horizon Work Studio, an accessibility-first architectural agency focused on designing spaces that empower rather than exclude. Within 6 months, Naomi was walking short distances with a cane. Her therapy sessions intensified. Her mind, now free from the pharmaceutical fog, worked sharper than ever. She returned to sketching again. Designing. Dreaming. Her first project under the new firm was a rehabilitation campus in Brooklyn, a place for those recovering from physical trauma, designed by someone who had lived it. She called it the Phoenix Center. The media labeled Naomi a symbol of quiet revolution. But she rejected that label. This wasn't quiet, she told Architectural Digest in an exclusive interview. I was screaming for years, just no one was listening. She now speaks publicly about medical gaslighting and systemic control inside marriages. Her TED Talk, The Architecture of Control, went viral within days of posting, half professional analysis, half personal reckoning. And the foundation Grant had stolen from? Naomi reclaimed it. Renamed it. The Rebuild Trust now funds mobility tools, legal aid, and safe housing for disabled survivors of domestic manipulation. She also rebuilt relationships long strained. Her sister Lena moved in with her for a while, their bond stronger than ever. Her therapist Casey now sits on the board of Horizon Works, helping train designers to better consider disability from lived experience. But most importantly, Naomi reclaimed her voice. She no longer apologizes for using a wheelchair. She no longer accepts pretty words from powerful men. She no longer asks for permission to take up space. And when she walks through the doors of her new office, sunlight catching the brushed steel logo that bears only her name, it's not with regret. It's with power. Because Naomi doesn't just build structures anymore. She builds freedom. It wasn't about revenge. Naomi had told herself that 100 times, and meant it. Because revenge is loud. Messy. Fueled by anger and destruction. What she wanted wasn't to destroy Grant. She wanted to reclaim herself. And she did. The courtroom was silent the day Naomi delivered her victim impact statement. No theatrics. No tears. Just truth. Mr. Taylor didn't just betray a marriage, she said, her voice calm and unwavering. He weaponized my disability. He manipulated my medication, isolated me from my life's work, and attempted to erase my voice. She paused, letting the words settle. But this isn't a story about what he took. It's about what I reclaimed. The judge nodded. Even Grant, slumped beside his lawyer in a gray suit that no longer held power, didn't speak. Naomi continued, "Justice isn't revenge. It's truth. It's restoration. And it's finally having the strength to say, you don't get to write my ending." Grant was sentenced to federal prison. His assets were liquidated. The penthouse? Repurposed as transitional housing for survivors of medical coercion. Months later, Naomi stood once again, but this time, on stage at Lincoln Center, accepting a National Design Award for the Phoenix Center. The ovation was thunderous. But she didn't soak it in for glory. She took a breath and said simply, "This space was designed not from blueprints, but from pain, from survival, and from the unshakable belief that people deserve to heal with dignity." Later that evening, in her new home, a sun-filled walk-up in Brooklyn that she'd designed herself, Naomi sat on her balcony with a cup of jasmine tea. The city lights blinked in the distance. Her cane rested beside her, unused for now. Her phone buzzed. A message from Casey. "First scholarship applicant accepted. She's 19. Wants to study accessible design because of you." Naomi smiled. "Because of you." 3 simple words that reminded her why she endured the darkest chapters. Not to punish. To protect. Not to destroy. To rebuild. Her legacy wasn't a list of awards, or the skyline she once shaped with Grant. It was this, giving voice to those who had been silenced. Making space, literally and metaphorically, for others to rise. As the night breeze danced across her face, Naomi whispered to herself, "I'm still standing." And she was. Not just with legs that now carried her farther than doctors predicted, but with a voice, clear, fierce, and entirely her own. Because when everything had been taken from her, her health, her career, her identity, she didn't break. She redesigned. She rebuilt. And she rose.